a law that you can apply on like even Twitter and Facebook, and they have to abide by it, these companies, otherwise they're going to get in trouble with Germany if it's a post in German, I guess. Well, it's not like it's working perfectly. Like often it flags posts that were made, for example, in a sarcastic sense. Like I remember a German comedian, she made a post saying, we have some terrible tradition for New Year's, Germans, some terrible thing that we do, like really tacky and cheesy. And she said, well, if the refugees are going to come here and destroy our culture, welcome, but destroy this thing too. And she didn't really mean that refugees are going to destroy our culture. It was more like a joke on people that might think that way, and also a joke on us thinking our culture is so superior that it shouldn't be impacted, because obviously our culture has a lot of shitty parts in it. You know, for example, this New Year tradition. But that post was flagged and taken down as hate speech, because she was like, if you just read it on the face of it, she was saying refugees destroy our culture. Mm. So really, I mean, I don't have a good solution there. Yeah. Really.
So yeah, so similar to what happened to your friend, like I did a video with, you know, every Wednesday I do a live show with my co-host Jason, and we talk about like current political news and stuff like that, usually related to US and China. And one of our episodes is talking about what is QAnon, because that at that time, like people didn't know, and we wanted to give them the information. YouTube took it down. And it was purely informational. We weren't advocating for it. If they even just looked at, you know, the transcript, they could see that it was purely just us telling people what QAnon was, and that, you know, we don't believe in it, but other people do, and it was taken down. So, do we want social media regulating free speech? Absolutely not. I don't.
Yeah. I think in a way, the German approach of actually making a law and saying, okay, this is going to be a matter for the judiciary, is better than the American way of saying, well, let Facebook and Twitter and YouTube sort it out, because you're kind of copping out of the responsibility as a society. You're leaving it to them, and it's not in their interest to police anything. Like, they can only lose whatever they do. A person like Zuckerberg, I don't like the guy, but it's not like it's easy, because whatever you do, you got a bottom line and investors, and then you got everybody on your case. Yeah. And it's really fair. They should say, this is the law, you abide by this. But no.
Yes, and I don't know what's going on over there. I don't know if it's because, you know, Silicon Valley has like such large amounts of money being lobbied into Washington, that because I am baffled that the social media industry has not been regulated, whereas television in America is heavily regulated. So why not apply the same regulations that we use on TV as we do for YouTube and other social media? Because let me give you an example. Like on YouTube, they have a lot of children's videos, right, where it's made to attract and to maintain the attention span of children, right? So you have like lots of things moving, like here, and things flashing, and, you know, I see toddlers and they're staring at it because it's like it's everything moving fast and it's interesting, flat, colorful, and you know, when TV, right, when television was the, you know, the thing that people watch, they were very thoughtful about children's television shows. They got together scientists, experts, teachers, just experts in the educational field to come together and create something like Sesame Street, right? Things that are good for children. And then, you know, there's also other regulations on like stuff that you can say on TV, like you can't curse, and, you know, it's like, you know, nudity and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it's and can you argue that that's a restriction on free speech to not show nudity on TV? I think you could make that argument, but they
did. As a European, definitely. I like my titties on TV. I'm European.
We are such prudes in America when it comes to the naked body, and it has a perverse effect of us being more perverted, I think.
Yeah.
Then if you were to like, you know what I mean? Like little boys are like, ooh, like naked beats. Like, let me go sneak and find my, but then I hear in Europe, like kids see adults and each other like naked all the time, right? Not all the time, but it happens and it's normal.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you said in the beginning of all of this, I think is very central. I think there is a general misunderstanding among Americans, among Europeans, and among Chinese people that there's anything such as complete freedom of speech. Like the freedom to say anything you want to anybody, anywhere, at any time. And I think that's really, really important to make people understand that that's not how it works. That's not how it has ever worked anywhere. It's the enshrined freedom of your speech that is enshrined with different limitations in America and in Europe, and not so much enshrined in China, maybe officially, but what's really going on is different. It doesn't mean you can say anything you want anywhere, all the time. Right. I can't go to your house and start screaming. It's your house.
Yes. So you actually triggered my memory of the second the section that I could think of to free speech, which is you can't incite violence, which makes sense, right? Like if you're inciting violence and it actually results in violence, then it's the government can't come in and say you can't do that because you are, again, infringing on the rights of another citizen. So that's basically all the limitations of free speech is when somebody goes and infringes on other people's rights. So thank you for reminding me of that.
What I don't understand about these things, and I mean, you have a better grasp of them. If you say, I can't say fire in a crowded theater because that's going to endanger people's health, because there's going to be a stampede or whatever, I understand that. But at the same time, it seems like if I mean, this is a very concrete and very, like, a very in the scope, everything happens in a very compressed time and space, right? I say fire and then people die because we crush each other. It's very logical. But then there's also a way of saying, maybe nobody should take a vaccine and then people die. It's just not in a matter of time and space. It's not as compressed. They will die later. And it's not going to be like, I scream now, no vaccines, please, and then they die in the next moment. They're going to die a few months later. But isn't the effect kind of the same?
So can you rephrase your question?
I'm making a slippery slope argument here, which is a foul itself. But I'm saying, like, if yelling fire in a theater is so obviously wrong, because people are going to get hurt in a very compressed space and time. I yell fire and they die a second later. Then isn't it kind of the same as saying, hey, don't get a vaccine, and then they die a few months later or like a few weeks later? But the effect is still similar, isn't it?
So that's an interesting point. But that's an interesting point. But so I think there has to, so from a legal perspective, there's this thing called causation, right? Does that person's claim of, the anti-vaxxer claim that we're using as an example, did that specific like person's post or, words or whatever it was, or article cause, whoever, to not get the vaccine, and then they contract COVID or another illness, and then they die. And I would argue that that it's too indirect. That cause is not immediate enough that the person actually caused this person to not get the vaccine. Do you know what I mean? Like that person probably saw, more than that, like one article to not get the vaccine. But even if they only saw the one article, I just think because of causation, which is an element that you need to win, I just don't think the line is direct enough. That's how
there has to be a sort of compression of time and space where this happens, then this happens, and we can see the clear causation.
Right, because let's take it to the extreme, right? Like the butterfly effect, right? A butterfly flaps its wings and like a mountain falls down somewhere in like Antarctica, right? Did that butterfly wings flutter cause that mountain to collapse or whatever? Yes, but was it the butterfly's fault?
Okay.
So causation wasn't there, like it's too indirect, even though, if you go down the chain of events, yes, it was the butterfly's fault. So that.
So the same must pertain to speech that incites violence, where I have to literally say, kill them now.
Mm-hmm.
And we kill them.
Yes. So it's kind of like when you're like in a crowd or you're together or in a bar and you're yes, exactly what you're saying, and you're saying, everybody, let's go, kick this person's butt. Let's go and murder the person. Yeah. Okay.
But it can't be kind of like I create the atmosphere slowly, where it becomes possible.
So if the person was never actually hurt, you can make as many threats as you want. You can say, you can pull out your gun in places where you're allowed to have guns and not, open carry. You pull it out. You could even, point it at the person, be like, I'm going to kill you right now. That's completely fine.
Okay.
Scary, but fine, legally speaking.
Okay.
Yes. So is that very bizarre to you?
As a person that has no legal background, it seems very difficult to kind of have a straight cut line where you say, okay, this is causal, I can see it, and this isn't, because I took two examples that were very far removed from each other, but I imagine there's a lot of gray stuff in the middle where you kind of go like, well, it happened, but like not that close to it.
Yes. So there are so many free speech cases that are on the books, and there's so much precedence that we are able to boil down all of these cases down to the explanation that I gave to you in the beginning, and that came from 200 and plus years of American history of cases being brought to this, go all the way up to the Supreme Court, that will every time we'll keep better defining what is free speech, the scope and the limitations. So does that answer your question?
It's kind of like, could I say, like, if I wrote a book on women, I don't want to go into women, but like I'm just thinking of witches. Let's say witches. It could be a male witch. Let's just say the witch. Like witches need to be burned. And you can identify them by these different, characteristics. And I wrote that book and I gave speeches, but I never incited the crowd to actually take a presumed witch and burn them. That wouldn't be a problem. But then if at one of these crowds, another person that kind of just happened to be there went like, well, according to this definition, let's take that one and do it. And they actually did it. That person would have the problem.
Correct. But not you.
Man. It doesn't seem fair, does it?
Oh, why is that?
I don't know, because I'm tilling the field and making it possible slowly through agitation.
But you're not responsible for other people's actions. But I understand what you're saying, because you're saying like when you're inciting violence, the government is making you responsible for other people's actions. So there is a somewhat of a parallel. I do see it, but you're so far removed from that incident. You know what I mean? Like, so anybody can write books or blogs or whatever, talking about anything, like I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to go kill President Biden. I'm not doing it, but just, I'm not doing it. No plan to, love the guy. But, like I can write a whole book on like a treatise on how I'm going to do it with like, you know, plans and like whatever. And I could even send this to the FBI. They'll probably keep me on their watch list, and that's pretty much the end of it. But then, you know, if like my, like, you know, friends pick it up or strangers pick it up and they do decide to kill Biden, it's not my fault. And it wouldn't be my fault because it's again, it's a causation kind of thing, right? Like, I didn't cause that person to cause the incitement of violence, you know?
How did they get Charles Manson? I'm sorry, we're like going into very strange territory here, but like he wasn't at that house.
So they got Charles Manson through conspiracy. So yes, so conspiracy is a very interesting legal topic. Basically, conspiracy, you need at least two people, right? And there must be a meeting of the minds. So two people that get together and they must have the intent to commit a crime. And once that intent is formed, so let's say you and I had the intent to commit a crime, which we don't, but if we have that intent, let's just say, to like murder someone we don't like, and like we plan it together, but you're the one that actually goes out and carries out the murder, I'm still guilty, in America at least, of conspiracy to commit homicide, and I would get the same exact penalties as someone that as you, the person that did it.
I couldn't just say I was just talking, you know, free speech. I was just kind of, you know, I don't know, imagining stuff, and I don't know why he did it, but
so if I got a good lawyer, that would be the argument that he would make, that I was not there and I never like. But here's the thing: the prosecutors, right? They have in America. Prosecutors, they're the people that decide whether or not to charge someone with a crime. So you can actually commit a crime, but if a prosecutor decides they don't want to charge you, either because they just don't feel like it, or they think they can't prove, they don't have enough proof, they think the case is weak, there's some political reasons. I mean, prosecutors in America have way too much power, right? So they're the ones that will bring the case to the court, and they're the ones that will have to have enough evidence that the court will accept as evidence to put the person away. So
okay. Yeah. So basically we have established that there's a bunch of scenarios where your words can get you seriously into trouble.
Yeah. but very limited though.
Yeah.
Right.
Very limited.
Right, because you see how like all these mass school shootings happen, and they talk about it on 4chan and 8chan, sometimes on Reddit, and they say very plainly, I'm gonna go commit a school shooting tomorrow, and like they can't shut that down. So that's America for you. Well, what about Germany? Can people do that, or?
Oh, I don't know about these this kind of threat of physical force on. I don't know about that, but what I do know is there was a young kid, 20-something, kind of pasty, nerdish kid, and he got it into his head that he wasn't welcome on YouTube, and he made his own kind of video channel somewhere else, and he was like fervently denying the Holocaust online. He had his little channel, he would raise his arm, he had a little swastika flag. It was, in a way, it was so pathetic, it was almost adorable, to just watch this sad guy who has never seen any sun really in his living room acting out this weird, charade, kind of a farce. But they actually got him, the authorities, because it's illegal. Like he was trying to prove how the doors of the gas chambers of Auschwitz, they didn't open that way, so it couldn't have happened, and the gas, it doesn't really kill, whatever. But they got him, and then I think he had to do community work, and they did some deprogramming. Like they got some social workers and tried to educate him, and then he came back and he was like, "Guys, I'm sorry, I get it now. It was wrong." And I don't know. I felt like, yeah, I feel conflicted about these things. In that particular instance, it felt good that this kid was kind of there was a legal way to rein him in and even possibly help him, because otherwise you couldn't do anything, right?
Right.
If there's no legal thing, no handle, he can make all the videos he wants and nobody's going to get to him. But this way there was a legal handle that they could use to get to him, and I felt like that was a nice thing. But I don't think that works on many people. I think for many people that have this kind of views, it just makes them more angry.
Yeah.
If you go like, you can't say that, then like my first reaction would be like, oh, the state doesn't want me to say that, I'm gonna say just
right.
So,
Nature.
yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, some people have this kind of character. I happen to be one of them.
Same.
Yeah. So I don't know. I really don't know what the best way is. I think the time we're seeing right now with social media and the internet is a revolution in information, and I think that the technical revolution is already happening, but the legal revolution is behind, and our mindsets are also behind because we're kind of trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And this is a painful process, I think.
It's incredibly painful to watch. And I think so I brought up one of the issues before where I was saying that maybe social media hasn't been regulated because of like maybe too much money in politics, right? By the way, in America, money is free speech, and it's considered. Have you heard this?
You gotta explain.
Oh my God! It is considered one of the worst Supreme Court decisions in modern history.
When was that?
It's Citizens United. It's, if you say that to any American that has any sort of knowledge of, or care about like the country and all that, they would know what this is. And it was fairly recent. I want to say within the last 20 years. Let me get you the exact date right now. And it says that money is free speech, which led to the influx of tons and tons of money into politics. Whereas before, there were limitations to political contributions. And now there are super PACs where you can put in money, like infinite amounts of money in these super PACs, and like donate them to politicians. And I'm sure the CCP, like, through shell companies and whatever, are doing this too. And maybe they don't know it, maybe they do know it. So that's so let's see, let me get that date for you, when Citizens Unite. So that, as a lawyer and as a concerned citizen, 2010. So that case was 2010.
Okay.
So 20 years, exactly 20 years ago, right? Or 21 years ago.
Okay.
So, yeah, so like I was pretty close.
How many judges did Bush appoint? Little Bush.
I believe Bush appointed 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and yes, it was exactly, it was exactly because of, I think maybe Bush, maybe that it was, so he appointed 2 justices, which was 2 justices to the Supreme Court. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So and now the new justice that that Trump selected, and Mitch McConnell, by the way, who was the Senate Majority Leader back when Trump was president. He is a political genius, mastermind, evil political mastermind. But you have to give him props. And he's married to the this like half Shanghainese, half Taiwanese lady, right? What's her name? I can't recall right now. Elaine. She was the secretary of the DOT. But anyway, so the 2 Supreme Court justices that Trump appointed, well, he appointed 3, but the 2 that I take issue with is Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. And when Kavanaugh was being going through his confirmation hearing, I was like just, you know, going on all my social media, blasting him. So, like every like law professor basically came out, wrote this letter saying he shouldn't be in the Supreme Court, saying he doesn't have the temperament. If you saw his confirmation hearing, you'll see that he erupted and he vowed revenge on Democrats. And yes, and the Supreme Court is supposed to be completely apolitical. You will never see a Supreme Court justice give a TV interview, you know, give journalistic interviews. They are not allowed to express any political view, and they're supposed to be neutral. But Kavanaugh, he's now transforming this court into this ultra conservative court, and since he's been on the court, he's been on the majority decision side for pretty much all of the decisions, and he has done some incredibly unprecedented things, such as overturning a matter that the claimant or plaintiff or the party to the case did not ask for, which is not something you're supposed to do in law. And yep, and everybody thinks, the legal community thinks, that he did that because he wants to reserve the power to overturn cases, to overturn Roe v. Wade, which is the abortion.
Oh,
yep.
Wow.
Yes. So the Supreme Court it is very powerful in America. As you know, I mean, FDR tried to pack the courts, remember, because they were blocking his and everything. So, you know, I'm worried about the Supreme Court, to be honest. I never thought I'd be worried. Chief Justice Roberts, he was appointed by Bush's father, I believe, and so he's the main chief justice, and he's concerned about the court, and he usually votes with the conservatives, but lately he's even been kind of overturning his own opinions to vote with the side of the more liberal judges. And for the first time ever, in an opinion written by the justices, you see Kagan attacking Kavanaugh, which is never done, because they're supposed yeah, it's incredible, because you're supposed to have like utter respect for the other justices. So for her to come out and say that indicates to me that behind the scenes, it's much, much worse. So that's concerning to me. Sorry, we digressed. But the Supreme Court they are the people that decide the scope of free speech. So who gets onto the Supreme Court and what they think about it is super important, is the most important.
And in 2010, they decided on Citizens versus United. And that kind of gave you more free speech, because money was suddenly free speech, or money was speech. And so money became free. So it became more, essentially. In a way, you could argue that way. You could say, I'm a free speech absolutist. It's more free now. But at the same time, it seems to be a little bit detrimental to the political system. I don't know if everybody would agree, but that's what it seems like.
Everybody would agree. I mean, maybe you'll have, like, as a lawyer, you never say everybody, but like, I want to say everybody, like, almost everybody, because nobody thinks this is a good decision except for the people benefiting from it, right?
And so, like, basically what it looks like on the face of it is that we're back at what was it called? The fairness doctrine thing, where you had a system that had free speech enshrined in the Constitution, but then it had limits. Like, for example, the fairness doctrine, for example, money isn't speech. That's a limitation. And then people come and they go like, hey, let's be freer. And so they do away with the limitations. And then you either end up reaping the benefits, or you reap whatever non-beneficial things then come. And it looks like it wasn't so beneficial.
So here's my take on this whole thing. I think that the Supreme Court took a very perverted view of what free speech is. I don't think, like, in my mind, when I think of speech, money does not come to my mind at all. Like, when I think free speech, like, it makes sense, the insignias, right? What you wear, the stuff you have on your t-shirts, the stuff you say, the stuff you write, things you say on TV. That makes sense. That's speech. like how is money free speech? And that's what everyone is struggling with. Like, how is an inanimate object and the spending of that inanimate object free speech, right? Like yes, can you like do somersaults and twist yourself into a pretzel to get to that conclusion? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But you can do that for anything. It doesn't, it's caused so much damage to this country. It has really, really messed up Congress. It needs to go. This is the one thing that needs to go. I mean, not just the one thing that needs to go, but this is one of the biggest things that needs to go. And I think it will be viewed in the future by in history as one of the worst Supreme Court decisions, other than the Plessy versus Ferguson and like all the stuff about like slaves and stuff that happened. And,
sure. Yeah, well, those weren't so good, yeah.
Right, and the Japanese internment camps, which they said was content. Yeah. That was not a good one either.
Act or whatever, did they rule on that?
I'm sorry?
I think so. The Chinese Exclusion Act?
Yeah, exactly. So they're not perfect, right? They're not perfect. Yeah, so I am of the opinion that the arc to justice, bends slowly, right? I don't know what the exact expression is, but the arc of justice bends or slowly bends toward justice or whatever. Like slowly but surely we're gonna get there, because people argue I've been hearing the Black community, people argue that things have not gotten better in America for Black people since the 1970s. And then you have these 1970s Black activists come out and say, no, that is not true. Things have progressed a lot more since the 1970s. Change is slow. So I'm optimistic. I think that this horrible decision will be overturned. I don't know when, but I do think it will be.
Well, it looks as though we're really looking at not free speech as it pertains to the average citizen, but free speech as it pertains to institutions like the media or political donations, lobbying. So for the average citizen, nothing has changed. They can talk shit about the fairness doctrine as much as they want. They can talk shit about lobbying and politics as much as they want. So there's still hope that people can communicate. They can make their voices heard. Maybe in the media it's a little bit difficult because of the fairness doctrine, because now the media can go all partisan as crazy as they want, which is kind of detrimental to citizens forming their opinions.
Absolutely.
And then also kind of like that when lobbyism plays a much bigger role than maybe the average voter. Mm-hmm. But still, the average voter, the average citizen, has their free speech rights non-infringed, I would say, by these decisions, correct?